Hello everybody and welcome to Monza for the penultimate meeting of the 2016 International GTOpen season. It has been a wonderful year of racing so far. We now come to one of the highlights on the calendar, the high-speed run through the parkland, the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. Well, it's a very warm welcome from myself, Ben Evans, to an overcast but warm afternoon here in Monza. The pit lane has just opened and the thunder of the International GTOpen field heading out onto the circuit. And there is the driver that will start from second place in today's race, Gustavo Jackermann, at the wheel of the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW. Now, Jackermann, who comes into the weekend well up in the championship fight, third in the standings, tied on points in fact with his teammate Miguel Ramos. Manuel da Costa, strong qualifying for him to 8th place at the wheel of the Sport Anew Mercedes. And this promises to be an intriguing race. We've got lots of new entries to the field this weekend. We've got lots of returning entries, including Alex Moiseev and Marco Ciocci at the wheel of the Kaspersky Motorsport Ferrari 488. And that was a compelling proposition earlier in the season. We've got the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan of Vito Postiglione and Simone Pellegrinelli. And another, of course, the Lamborghinis is the pole-sitting, or the championship leading, rather, Orange 1 team Lazarus car. Now that, very excited to have on the grid, is the Scuderia Cameron Glickenhaus in the hands of Lorenzo Bontempelli and Beniamino Caccia. It is Mino Caccia who will be starting the race. They didn't make it out in qualifying this morning with some technical issues, but it is a car with a fantastic and compelling backstory. It's also a car that looks absolutely wonderful, and it's super that they've been able to sort their issues from qualifying, get the car out on track. It's the Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan of Omar and Kiko Galbiati, and it's actually Kiko Galbiati's 18th birthday this weekend, and what better way to celebrate your graduation from Formula 4 racing than coming and racing in the International GTOpen here at Monza. Just ahead of that car on the installation lap is the pole-sitting TF Sport Aston Martin of Ewan Hankey and Sally Yuluk. Hankey and Sally Yuluk, who have had one victory so far this season. That came in Silverstone. Is Alex West in, unfortunately, what's the sole Garage 59 McLaren this weekend. Mike Benham and Duncan Tappy's entry was involved in a testing incident here last week, and unfortunately, despite the very best efforts of everybody involved, they couldn't quite get everything turned around to get the car out on the grid for this weekend. There is the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan and Vito Postiglione, a driver with a great pedigree of racing in Porsches, Italian GTs and the free Trofeo, and he has been a champion in all of those categories. It's Postiglione who's going to start the race from 4th on the grid. So he rolls the bright green Lamborghini Huracan to a halt. Grid absolutely abuzz with activity. This is always one of the busiest paddocks of the year in Monza. It's also often some of the best racing that we have during the season as well in the International GTOpen. And today's race wide open with Hankey in the Aston Martin in pole position. And remember 12 months ago, Ewan Hankey being right at the front end of the field as well as TF Sport team. Sally Yuluk just have a final conversation on the grid. Hankey in particular, the key is if he can just break clear at the front of the pack, but he has got the brace of Teo Martin Motorsport BMW's championship. First up is Gustavo Jackermann, scoring his first win of the season in the last race. It was at the Red Bull Ring. Carl Heath partners with Fernando Monje, and it is Jackermann who will take to the start. Reigning champion Miguel Ramos will take over mid-race from Peter Schotthurst, who will be kicking off in the second of the Teo Martin Motorsport. BMW's Shotters to join the team mid-season and has immediately made a very positive impact. So Simone Pellegrinelli and Vito Postiglione, Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan. And some last words of advice being proffered to Vito Postiglione. Championship leaders then, Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani. In the orange one, Team Lazarus Lamborghini. Fabio Babini and Emiliano Busnelli at the wheel of the Ebby Motors Lamborghini, 6th on the grid, and there were some worries last night after that car had a bit of a moment in the final free practice session of the day, but fortunately damage not too significant and they are ready to take the start. Sean Balfour is, who comes into the weekend second in the championship standings, and he starts the Balfour Motorsport McLaren, reunited this weekend once more with Phil Keane. 8th on the grid for Manuel da Costa and Miguel Sardinia in the Sport and U Mercedes, and they are one of the preeminent challengers in the GTOpen class. We'll be looking for another GTOpen victory over the course of the race. Then it is on to the AF Course Kaspersky Motorsport Ferrari 488, Alex Moiseev and Marco Ciocci, and it's Moiseev who will be starting the race. The team very pleased with his performance in qualifying earlier on. That is a car that could well challenge for the win, as could this one from 10th on the grid, Alexander West and Com Ledegar in the Garage 59 McLaren. It's Ledegar just having a chat with West, who drove brilliantly in race 2 at the Red Bull Ring. Alex West, another team that went very well at the Red Bull Ring, Mario Placiuta and Thomas Jaeger in the Lechner Racing Mercedes, and they finished second in race 1 at the Red Bull Ring with Placiuta starting. Will they be able to repeat the feat today? Omar Galbiati, the Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan, lining up in 12th position. Again, very good with this car on the grid. Moving on down the grid as we're moments away from the start of the race, Fu Song Yang and Andrea Caldarelli in the SF Racing Ferrari. Let's have a look then at how they line up in full. So the front row of the grid, Ewan Hankey and Gustavo Jackerman. What a front row. And then row 2, Peter Schotthorst and Vito Postiglione. From on the third row of the grid, championship leader Thomas Biaggi and Fabio Babini. Biaggi's main championship challenger, Sean Balfe, lines up to the inside row 4 alongside GTOpen front runner Manuel da Costa. Then it's Alex Moiseev and Alexander West on row 5. Those cars should both feature later on, as will, I'm sure, Mario Placiuta in the Lechner Racing Mercedes. And he shares row 6 with Omar Galbiati. Fu Song Yang, who's got the very rapid Andrea Caldarelli waiting in the wings. And then it's the Glickenhaus of Beniamino Caccia and Lorenzo Bontempelli, which completes the field. And they were confident that the car was going as it should, that they will be in contention for GTOpen honours as well. So the car's about to head off on to the green flag formation. That we've got a 70-minute race to look forward to. And of course there are the mandatory pit stops to consider. They will take place between 28 and 42 minutes of the race duration, and that's where the element of strategy starts to come into play. That's also where the success seconds accumulated at previous events start to come into play as well. All the cars, of course, in the International GTOpen running on the control compound Michelin tyre. And this has been a season of some absolutely brilliant racing, and Monza always attract the drivers, enjoy enormously, and particularly today's race promises to be intriguing because we have got a lot of the pro drivers coming second alongside some of those starting at the front of the field, so plenty to look forward to. There is a recap of the championship. Crestani and Biaggi 19 points clear of Sean Balfe, with then Fernando Mounier, Gustavo Yakiman and Miguel Ramos just 4 further points back. So everything to play for, with still 44 points left on the table, and in all likelihood the championship going through to the final rounds at Barcelona at the start of November. Field winding their way through the parkland here at the cars on their formation lap ahead of this 11th race of the International GTOpen season. Thank you very much for joining us in Monza this afternoon. This is one of the world's most prestigious racing circuits. It's one that lends itself always to great racing for GT machinery. And this promises to be an intriguing race. The championship fight is coming to the wall. We have got a lot of very interesting entries in the pack. And we have got what promises to be quite a topsy-turvy race as well, with the field really quite split between the Pro and AM drivers as to who is starting the race. But from pole position, Ewan Hankey is going to aspire to get the jump on the brace of Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs. Vito Postiglione in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini is a wild card, and Thomas Biaggi will look to impress. There is Thomas Jaeger, who will be... well, other than his mechanic enjoying his moment of fame, he'll be taking over from Mario Plasciuta in the Leckner Racing Mercedes. There it is, a little bit later on in the race, with the Glickenhaus of Mino Caccia completing the field. The pack bunching up now behind the pace car as they run towards the Parabolica. It means it's peak anxiety inside the pit boxes. Nervous smiles for the Teo Martin Motorsport squad. Pack being bunched nicely as they come out of the Parabolica. It will be the responsibility of Yakiman and Hankey to hold the formation. Then when the lights change, we'll be racing for 70 minutes here in the International GTOpen. The headlights are ablaze, the thunder is starting to build, the pace car pulls off, and now it's all eyes to the gantry as we wait to go into action here in Monza. The pack all bunching up very, very nicely. There's the red light. It goes out and we're racing once more in 2016 as the field sprint towards the Rettifilio for the first time. Lots of jostling for position throughout the pack, but Ewan Hankey holds his line down to turn 1 and claims the lead from Gustavo Yakiman. And then it's Peter Schotthorst, Vito Postiglione and everybody else jinking and jostling through, but fortunately avoiding contact. But Schotthorst has got the slingshot out of the Rettifilio. He looks to challenge the outside of his teammate Yakiman. They're all ganging up on Ewan Hankey as well, who has got the track position as they head into the chicane. Postiglione also fancies his chances. Hankey leads. Yakiman has to concede to Schotthorst and then covers the line to make sure that the Lamborghinis don't slip through either, because Thomas Biaggi is there lurking with intent in 5th and Fabio Babini in 6th, also looking to challenge. Then it's the brace of McLarens, Sean Balfe from Alexander West, with Manuel da Costa just behind, leading the GTAM class in the Sport New Mercedes. Out of the second Lesmo already for Ewan Hankey. The BMW's flying in formation behind. Then the trio of Lamborghinis. It's Moisev just clear of Mario Plasciuta, with then Mino Caccia having gained some ground on Fusong Yang, as looking to the inside into Ascari. That was close from Yakiman. He thought the move was on. Peter Schotthorst had a very clear dissenting opinion on that. Another place gained further back for Mino Caccia. He's now clear of Philippe Barrieroff in the V8 Racing Renault, as this is good news, one would suggest, for Ewan Hankey, as Schotthorst and Yakiman fight with each other. It's going to give the Aston Martin a chance to break clear as Yakiman's going for a move here around the outside of the Parabolica. Peter Schotthorst gives him room. That's a magnificent manoeuvre from Gustavo Yakiman. If he can pull it off as they come on to the start and finish straight. He found the traction from somewhere and he gets his nose in front of Peter Schotthorst. Brilliant, brilliant pass from Gustavo Yakiman. He then moves across, covers the inside line, the Rettifilio, and edges out Schotthorst. And now the Colombian sets off in pursuit of Ewan Hankey. The rest of the field jink and jump over the curbing. Already Hankey trying to just break clear at the front of the field. He'll know now that Jackman's got the red mist down, looking to try and chase him down. All of the dicing between the BMWs has brought Vito Postiglione and Thomas Biaggi into the battle. There is Sean Balfe, second in the championship, looking for the opportunity to try and finish clear of Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani if he possibly can. Alex Moiseev will know that he's got Marco Ciocci waiting in the wings as well. So part of the challenge in this first part of the race for the likes of Ewan Hankey is to build an advantage. The rest is to keep the field as tightly as possible heading into the second phase of the race. Hankey comes up the slight rise in the road into Ascari. His lead over Jackman was 0.8 of a second at the end of lap 1. It looks like it's a little bit more than that midway through lap 2. And Peter Schotthorst in third. No particular pressure from Vito Postiglione. And then the first bit of daylight really emerging between Sean Balfe back to Alex West in the fight for 7th and 8th place. The Lamborghinis all run in formation through the Parabolica. Couldn't ask for an awful lot more than Lamborghinis in full song at Monza, as Postiglione now just getting a little bit closer to Peter Schotthorst, not quite close enough to challenge. The same goes for Fabio Babini. He's not really quite able to threaten Thomas Biaggi. Hankey put the hammer down that last lap. He extended the lead now to 1 3/4 seconds over Gustavo Jackman. Jackman pulling out a second over Peter Schotthorst. And then Postiglione now just easing clear of Thomas Biaggi. Biaggi having to defend a little bit from Fabio Babini. Now this is where it starts to get interesting for Thomas Biaggi, particularly with an eye towards the championship, because here comes Babini. Thinks about looking to the inside into the chicane. He can't quite do it, but as Biaggi defends, it's going to bring one of his main championship rivals, Sean Balfe, into this scrap as well. The two BMWs that have also got the opportunity of jumping the Orange 1 Team Lazarus Lamborghini pairing are running in second and third position further up the road. The headlights are ablaze. It's not quite as dark possibly as the television pictures are making out, but it has been solidly overcast. Glimpse inside the Imperiale Racing garage, and this is the car that they're all watching in fourth place. They've got Simone Pellegrinelli waiting to take over. But at the moment, Vito Postiglione just keeping the car in fourth. He's keeping in touch with the two BMWs. Ewan Hankey doesn't appear, certainly to the way that the car's positioned on the track, to seem to have built his lead enormously over the course of this third lap of the race. We'll find out now as Hankey accelerates through. He completes the lap. His lead over Gustavo Jackman has in fact extended. It's out to 2.4 seconds now. All the other positions remaining pretty much exactly as they were. BMWs negotiate the tight confines of the Villa. Just a lovely shot there of the sparks being kicked up by Fabio Babini as he ran over the sausage curbs. Now he gets the power down off chasing Thomas Biaggi. We've got one car that is potentially in trouble. That is Omar Galbiati in the Anthony Motorsport Lamborghini. Their team manager has been summoned to race control. So this fight for fifth. Gets the chicane, and it's great to see Fabio Babini really wringing the neck of the Ebby Motors Lamborghini. He is appreciably more aggressive at the moment behind the wheel than Thomas Biaggi, but it's not yet resulting in being able to overhaul the very experienced multiple world GT champion Thomas Biaggi. And the Orange 1 Team Lazarus squad watching on now. This is a good scrap headed by Alex West. He has got Manuel da Costa just behind him. Then Alex Moiseev in the Kaspersky Motorsport. They of course prepared Ferrari 488, the new Ferrari model. We've seen it a few times this year in the International GTOpen. And Marco Ciocci, who will be in that car in the second half of the race, has really been wringing its neck with great effect. But Moiseev was impressive in qualifying earlier on, as we were saying at the top of the show. He's going to be looking to try and overhaul West and Manuel da Costa. As Babini again picks up the throttle, tries to pressurise Thomas Biaggi. Biaggi's been doing this far too long to be flustered by what's going on in his mirrors. So as they start the 5th lap of the race, he just holds station, as do Jackman and Schotthorst, with Postiglione behind them. All the while, though, this is allowing Ewan Hankey just to build a little bit of a lead for Sally Yuluck to inherit. Hankey's advantage now 3.5 seconds. But he was almost a second quicker than Gustavo Jackman last time around. And this starts to get a little bit worrying for the rest of them, because we're 20 minutes away from the pit window opening, which is going to be time at least for 11 more laps here for Ewan Hankey. And a second a lap for 11 laps is going to be a very, very tidy advantage indeed. Ewan Hankey and Sally Yuluck, by the way, in terms of the championship, they are 45 points off the championship lead. So it's still mathematically possible for them to claim the crown, but obviously would require a lot of results to go in their favour. Sean Bauth pressing on, doing a good job in pursuit of the dicing Lamborghinis, and Alex West, who really seemed to have a breakthrough performance at the Red Bull Ring. Some fantastic defensive driving from the Swede, and that seems to have continued into the early stages here in Monza. So it's Aston Martin, BMW, Lamborghini, 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 McLaren down the back straight towards the Parabolica. Nobody just able to force the issue, or indeed wanting to force the issue in these early stages, because we've seen it on several occasions this year that the gloves really start to come off in the second half of the race, and you don't want to risk your car with a move early on if you know that maybe the strategy is going to swing in your direction later on. So, for example, we know for Sean Bauth, he's got Phil Keane, who will take over for the second phase of the race, and Phil, a little bit quicker than Sean, should be able to race the McLaren up the order. Likewise, Fabrizio Cristani has been a very even match for Thomas Biaggi in the 2016 campaign. Now there you see the impact this is going to have on the championship if things stay as they are. So it would jump Monnier and Jackman up into second position, but very early stages. West still keeping Manuel da Costa behind him. Da Costa, by the way, leading the GTOpen class from Omar Galbiati and then Beniamino Caccia in the Glickenhaus. Fusong Yang in 14th, Philippe Barrieroff then slipping towards the tail of the field. Now this is also very interesting to note with Fusong Yang, because he's slipped 32 seconds off the lead, but he's got Andrea Caldarelli who will take over, and Caldarelli has been really a benchmark performer so far in terms of wringing the neck of that Ferrari. So the pack sprinting on towards Ascari. Front of the field, though, it is Ewan Hankey who continues to lead on the 6th lap here in Monza. Amato Ferrari watches on from the AF Course pit box. His car is there in the hands of Alex Moiseev. We've got one car that's gone off the far side of the circuit, I can tell you from our timing screen, as now we've had a sort out amongst BMWs, and it's Jackman who's lost out. Schotthorst has got past him, and Vito Postiglione is looking to overhaul both BMWs. Peter Schotthorst tries to edge out the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini and manages to do so just. Jackman looks to regain some ground, but in the blink of an eye, Gustavo Jackman has slipped from second down into 4th. We've possibly put the curse of the commentator on Fusong Yang, because he has not come through the second sector on this last lap, and the waved yellow flags into the chicane possibly will explain where the Zef Racing Ferrari has come to a halt. There you see it, in fact, on the exit of the chicane. Now I hope we don't have a safety car for that, but the Zef Racing Ferrari was parked fairly proximate to the edge of the circuit. Now here is another look at it, and it's gone off the road and came back on, just trying to execute a spin turn. Unfortunately just put the front of the car into the barriers, and that's at quite an oblique and awkward angle. That would potentially be very, very bad news for Ewan Hankey, who's been building that handy buffer at the front of the pack. But the desire, I'm sure, would be if they can safely recover that car under a localised yellow. That's what they're going to do, rather than interrupt the race with a safety car period. Now that Postiglione's found a way past Gustavo Jackerman, he's got Peter Schothorst to try and contend with. Didn't quite see what started that allowed Schothorst to get the run on Jackerman. But the net result was a loss of 2 places. So there's Andrea Caldarelli, who unfortunately looks like he's not going to be able to drive in this race, unless of course the Ferrari didn't really pick up too much damage against the barrier, so if they can push the car out it could get back under steam. Ewan Hankey continues to lead in Monza, but there's been a change if you've just joined us for second place. It's Peter Schothorst who's now clear of Vito Postiglione. Gustavo Jackerman has slipped to 4th. We have lost Fusong Yang. And here is the Glickenhaus of Beniamino Caccia. Great to see the car on the grid, and Lorenzo Bontempelli, former race winner in the International GTOpen, will take over mid-race. And Mino Caccia has already raced the car up to 3rd in the GTAM class. His next target is Omar Galbiati. Galbiati just 5 seconds up the road, but Mino Caccia appreciably quicker there. You see the SF Racing Ferrari that came a cropper at the chicane. He's now a couple of laps down, even if that car can be brought back into the race. Omar Galbiati in the Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghini. Great to see them on the grid this weekend. And Galbiati just 6 seconds back from Mario Plasciuta in 11th and 12th positions. Provisional Drivers' Championship, just had a glance at there, although that is possibly changing with each and every lap here. So Ewan Hankey, his lead over Peter Schothorst now 7.8 seconds, but Postiglione has got a good run this time around as they head towards the Rettifilio, and this is the opportunity maybe for the Italian to pounce. He draws alongside the BMW, he gets the nose of the Lamborghini just about in front, the car dances on the brakes, but Postiglione gets the job done and moves up into 2nd position in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan. Schothorst demoted to 3rd, Jackerman continues in 4th. And now we're going to see whether or not Postiglione has got the pace to try and peg back Ewan Hankey a little bit. We've still got double waved yellows covering this 2nd chicane, whilst the recovery of the SF Racing Ferrari is pretty much completed, I would suggest, because the marshals are running back behind the barriers and there's no Ferrari trackside. Hopefully that's been to now getting back into the fray, rather than that car being recovered on the back of a flatbed truck. Here's another look then, move from Postiglione. That's experience for you. The Lamborghini absolutely at the limit of adhesion on the brakes. And already Postiglione looking to pull the pin, ease away from the BMWs. Gustavo Jackerman looking to try and come back at his teammate Peter Schothorst. And we've got a couple more Lamborghinis, with Thomas Biaggi having withstood that pressure now from Fabio Bobini, just beginning to open up a little bit of a buffer, and Sean Balfe 7th, 16.5 seconds back from the race leader Ewan Hankey. But crucially now 3.5 seconds adrift of Fabio Bobini. There is Bobini, the Ebby Motors Lamborghini. One of the iconic motorsport shots as they swing out of the Parabolica, looking down the start and finish straight towards the Rettifilio. The BMW's flying formation through the opening sequence. The gap to Ewan Hankey has stabilised a little bit. In fact, Postiglione 0.3 quicker than Hankey last time around. The yellow flag's now retreated into the chicane. It's good news. So it opens up another overtaking opportunity on the track. We just got a glimpse of the SF Racing Ferrari recovered behind the barrier. So unfortunately the day is done for that car. Biaggi just accelerates through the first Lesmo, then into the second Lesmo. Again, finds the traction on towards Ascari. And for he and Fabrizio Cristani, it's been a very impressive year. Their worst finishing position was 8th place in race 1 at Spa, but they have just only had the one win, but they've racked up the consistency of the results, which is what is giving them a championship lead that they have held really since the mid-season point. And whilst others have maybe won more races, they just haven't been able to achieve the consistency of the Lamborghini pairing of Biaggi and Cristani. And this being the home race for them, they will again be chasing to try and get onto the top step of the podium. Meanwhile, Omar Galbiati, second in the GTOpen class, has just pegged a little bit of the damage that was being inflicted by Mino Caccia. Last round they set actually identical lap times to the nearest 100th of a second. There you can see the Glickenhaus Caccia trying to pursue the Lamborghini Huracan. Galbiati picks his line into the Parabolica. Somewhere adrift though of Manuel da Costa, who is the GTOpen class leader, but again, we'll see how the race unfolds before handing out the GTOpen honours. We've also got Felipe Barrieros at the wheel of the V8 Racing RS01, the Renault RS01 he shares with Francisco Guedes this weekend. So there is the principal of the Antonelli Motorsport team watching progress of his car. Yebi Motors, Lamborghini and Fabio Babini again trying to line up another shot here at Thomas Biaggi, but he's not quite close enough. The pit window opens in 8 minutes' time. Now that is when it potentially is the point where the race will certainly get turned on its head, but it's where the strategy starts to come into play as well. We just saw a bit of a lock up there from Vito Postiglione as he went through Ascari. Let's look at super slow motion of Ewan Hankey navigating Rettifilio, again making the TF Sport Aston Martin do the hard work. Smiles from the team. I think they would like the checker flag to come out about now rather than 49 minutes time. Postiglione lost a little bit of time that last time round to Peter Schotthorst, only a tenth of a second or thereabouts. And then Gustavo Jackermann in fourth, still staying with them. Of course, the handicaps to consider are that for Jackermann and Monge, they have got an additional 15 seconds in the pits by dint of victory last time. Now Fusong Yang is back into the fray, so he's got the car fired up, back underway. You can see just a little bit of front splitter damage where the car tapped the Armco barrier. So the SF Racing Ferrari goes into the pit lane. I wouldn't be surprised if they get that repaired and head back out onto the circuit. Meanwhile, for Peter Schotthorst, in terms of the success seconds for him and Mega Ramos, well, they haven't got any because of the finishing off the podium in second race, the Red Bull Ring. So there's advantage for Schotthorst and Ramos, possibly, as disappointed driver gets out of the cockpit of the SF Racing car, but for Fusong Yang, it was an impressive drive until then. Now here is the race leader, Ewan Hankey, and Hankey has been pretty much imperious at the front of the field. He leads by 8.5 seconds over Vito Postiglione. He and Sally Uluk, after their second victory of the season, to build on the one that they got at Silverstone, and as I said, they could still get into the title fray. What's really hurt their chances actually was qualifying for the very first race of the year at Estoril, where Sally Uluk just pushed a little bit too hard and had quite a sizable accident that ruled that car out for the remainder of the weekend. Thereafter, though, they have been remarkably consistent in racking up the results, racking up the good finishes. They've only had one other podium so far this year. That came in the second race at Paul Ricard, a race that possibly they might have won, but for Sally Ullett being caught up where Mike Benham spun late on. But they've always been up into the top half of the field and always racking up the points. But now there is every opportunity for Sally Ullett to inherit the car with a comfortable advantage built up by Ewan Hankey. His lead growing over the course of the last lap to just shy of 10 seconds. Vito Postiglione and the brace of BMW still disputing second. And Postiglione struggling to make a definitive gap over Peter Schotthorst, and Schotthorst has got Gustavo Jackermann poised right behind him. Thomas Biaggi's only 3.7 seconds down the road, and overall the field hasn't spread all that much. The top 10, which is completed by Alex Moiseev, covered by just 32 seconds, but that's the sort of gap that a poor pit stop and a late charge could potentially chase down, particularly if Moiseev pits in early to hand over to Marco Ciocci. And likewise for Alex, the other car to really watch for the second half of the race is going to be Alexander West in the Garage 59 McLaren, who has been going very, very well. He's only about 23 seconds off the lead, and that is eminently chaseable for Com Ledegaard once he gets behind the wheel. Now, Gustavo Jackermann looking to light the move on Peter Schotthorst into the Rettifilo. He forces the Vodafone-backed Theo Martin Motorsport BMW to defend. And Jackermann asking all the right questions now of Peter Schotthorst. Now here is Alex West, who we were just talking about. He's 29 seconds, in fact, on that last lap adrift of Ewan Hankey. But Com Ledegaard, when he takes over, very, very, very quick campaigner. They were so unlucky not to win in Paul Ricard. But a horrifically timed puncher took them out of contention. So Vito Postiglione continues in second position. Schotthorst coming under increasing threat from Gustavo Jackermann. We are just 3 minutes away from the pit window opening, so the race coming to the boil very nicely as Ewan Hankey continues to lead here in Monza. Through Ascari, this fight for second position. And what I think will be really pleasing here for the Theo Martin squad is that the BMWs are looking as tight and as crisp through the more technical sections at almost half race distance as they were at the very start of the race. And that had been a problem earlier on in the year, was that the car just started to go away from the drivers late on in the stint. That seems to be something that they've really solved through the summer break. Now the BMW's keeping the Lamborghini of Postiglione very honest. Ewan Hankey, his lead is out now to 11.2 seconds as Jackermann has got a good run here on Peter Schotthorst. Is it going to be quite enough, though, to make the challenge into the Rettifilo? Jackermann would certainly like to think so, but unfortunately there's nothing for him, from his perspective, there's nothing he could quite do. Well, West has broken clear of Manuel da Costa. Now da Costa leads the GTAM class at the moment in the sporting new Mercedes. Miguel Sardinia readying himself for action. He leads the GTAM class from Omar Galbiati and then Mino Caccia. Felipe Barreiros still very much part of that scrap. So the GTAM battle likely to go all the way to the flag as well. I don't think this leading group of cars are quite going to have the option to make their pit stop at the end of this lap, but certainly some of those behind them will, because the pit window opens in about 80 seconds time. I would imagine that Vito Postiglione is going to stay out fairly deep into the stint, as would Gustavo Jackermann. Peter Schotthorst and Miguel Ramos might decide to switch around a little bit earlier, try and make the play for track position and a little bit of clear air. Others we'd expect to see in early, Sean Balfe and Alexander West, also Alex Moiseev. And here is Sean Balfe coming into today's race, second in the championship. A little bit of a wobble through Ascari there for Balfe. Phil Keane, as ever, very relaxed in the Balfe Motorsport garage. So the pit window about to open here in Monza, the 11th race of the season for the International GTOpen. Ewan Hankey leads, as he has done ever since the start. This is the fight for second, which has never really opened up, with Vito Postiglione hanging on from Peter Schotthorst and Gustavo Jackermann. It looks like it's going to be all changed very soon in the Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs. In 5th place, it's the championship leader Thomas Biaggi. 6th is Fabio Babini. There they are. 7th is Sean Balfe. 8th, Alexander West. 9th, leading the GTM class, is Manuel da Costa, clear of Alex Moiseev. But Mario Pleshuta in 11th could still challenge once Thomas Jaeger takes over. As the pit window is open now, the element of strategy starts to come into play. For Ewan Hankey, it's a very handy buffer that he's been able to build for Sally Uluk to inherit. 12 seconds at the point at which the pit window opens, but Hankey, with the pit window not closing until there are 28 minutes left on the clock, has got the chance for another 7, maybe even 8 laps to try and further build that advantage. So Postiglione swings into Ascari for the 16th time. Just rides the curbs in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini before the blast down towards the Parabolica. The two BMWs following in very close contention. For Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Cristani, this could also play nicely into their hands. They've got 10 success seconds to contend with, but they've not really given away any time to this scrap for second position. Another leading quartet ducking early, but Thomas Biaggi does go in. So Biaggi is into the pits. The championship leaders are changing on the first lap of the pit window. Fabrizio Cristani will take over from him. The fight for second shuffles through the Rettifilia. Oh, a slight mistake there from Postiglione. Just outbrakes himself, but very well recovered. He just was able to block out any sort of an undercut from Peter Schotthorst. Out hops Biaggi, in gets Cristani. Also changing around, Sean Balfe in to hand over to Phil Keane. And we were expecting that move would happen reasonably early. Postiglione still fighting that rear guard action, doing a great job of keeping Schotthorst behind him, but it's just now a little bit more ragged. Also changing around, Alex Moiseev to Marco Ciocci in the Kaspersky Ferrari, and also Thomas Jaeger to take over from Mario Pleshuta. So we've got some very quick drivers now with the best part of 40 minutes to play with to try and chase down some gaps. Also Corm Ledergaard in from Alex West. Now this is potentially very good as things stand for the Garage 59 McLaren squad, provided all goes smoothly late on in the race. Also Kiko Galbiati takes over from Omar Galbiati. And Snelly Motorsport squad just topping up the fuel in the Lamborghini. Fight for second place. They've never been more covered by more than 2 seconds since the very start of the race. Jackermann held second for much of the early running, then he slipped down to 4th. Postiglione has taken his turn into second position, but now he's got both BMWs chasing him down. Meanwhile, Lorenzo Bontempelli about to take over the Glickenhaus from Beniamino Caccia. As again, Schotthorst defends into the Rettifilia from Gustavo Jackermann. Jackermann rather fancies this, tries to force it around. Oh, there's contact between the BMWs, and into the gravel goes Peter Schotthorst. Robust driving from Gustavo Jackermann. He thought the gap was there, and he certainly made sure it was by the end of the corner. And so Peter Schotthorst demoted into 4th. And he might feel a little bit aggrieved about that, but at the same time, I think Jackermann would say there was a gap there, and Schotthorst possibly should have given him some more space. Let's have another look at it. So Schotthorst covers the inside line. Jackermann looks to the outside. He's alongside at that point, and there's just that slightest of touches that pushes the Dutchman wide. This is the angle which shows it a little bit better. The first angle suggested that Jackermann was more than halfway alongside Schotthorst. And, well, Unfortunately, I don't think any harm done in terms of any damage to the cars. Just a couple of seconds lost for Peter Schothorst. But I'd imagine that that has led to a fairly intense collective rise of blood pressure in the Teo Martin Motorsport garage. The incident also between the pair of them is under investigation. Nonetheless, it releases Gustavo Jackermann to now take his turn to chase down Vito Postiglione. Just had them on the road, by the way. You were able to catch a glimpse of Com Ledegaard, who had emerged from the pits in the Garage 59 McLaren. And into the pit lane now comes Postiglione, so he is going to hand over to Simone Pellegrinelli in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini. The brace of BMWs continue on their way, as does Fabio Babini. So Simone Pellegrinelli waits as Postiglione out of the car. Very slick work from the Imperiale Racing squad. In that driver change done as quickly as possible. A little bit of top up of the fuel as well. Now here is Phil Keane at the wheel of the McLaren, ahead of the race leader Ewan Hankey. Into the Rettifilio, and Peter Schothorst pushing a little bit too hard. As you can see at the bottom of your screen, that move between the pair of them under investigation. It's Phil Keane on his outlap. Ewan Hankey, well warmed up, car running light on fuel, really trying to push on in the TF Sport Aston Martin. That's Sally Yuluk, who will jump into that car, but Hankey has got another 7 or 8 minutes left if he wants them. There's absolutely no need to dip into the pits before then. Now this is a battle to enjoy. Thomas Jaeger and Marco Ciocci post pit stops, and Ciocci launching over the curbs in the Ferrari 488. Thomas Jaeger, though, navigated the Lechner Racing Mercedes to second place in the Red Bull Ring. And this is also going to be quite a tricky one, because if they slow themselves down fighting here, it potentially takes away an opportunity to challenge for the podium late on. So by all means fight, I'm sure the teams will be saying, but see if you can work together and chase down some of the gaps in front. Nonetheless, headlights ablaze for Marco Ciocci. Also into the pit lane now comes Peter Schothorst to pass over to Miguel Ramos. The Teo Martin Motorsport team get to work. Schothorst out, Ramos in. Notwithstanding that slight bump with the sister car of Gustavo Jackermann, they remain very good contention, as Ciocci has found a way past Thomas Jaeger. We didn't quite see the move, but the net result, and here we do see the move, is that Marco Ciocci is some way clear, and that's what happened. Thomas Jaeger just pushed a little bit too hard and let the Mercedes into the Rettifilio. Ciocci needing no second invitation. In terms of those that have had their pit stops, by the way, it's Fabrizio Crestani who is the foremost of them. He is 6 seconds clear of Phil Keane. There's Phil, you can see, in the black and red McLaren. Then it is going to be Simone Pellegrinelli. You could just see him at the back of your picture. Then Com Ledegaard, and then Marco Ciocci. So Ledegaard and Ciocci have got a fair amount of chasing to do. They've got the time with which to do it. Ewan Hankey about to reel off the 20th lap of the race as he continues to close on Phil Keane. Both of them running in the low 1 minute 49 second bracket. And for Phil Keane, Sean Balfe, really the task here surely for Keane is to try and chase down, if he can, Fabrizio Crestani and find a way past him. The problem being that Crestani last time around was half a second quicker than Phil Keane. So if the orange won, Lazarus Lamborghini pairing of Crestani and Biaggi, this is potentially good news, but Crestani, you just saw there, is bottled up behind Lorenzo Bontempelli in the Glickenhaus. Crestani makes fairly short work of that. And Bontempelli far too experienced to cause any trouble. And then they've got Miguel Ramos just in front of them. Now this is an intriguing battle in terms of the championship, because Ramos came into the race only 4 points behind Sean Balfe, and with everything to race for, he's not that far adrift. 23 points off the championship lead at the start of the race, the reigning champion Miguel Ramos. Can he make it 2 titles on the bounce? So he is going to do all he can to keep Fabrizio Cristani behind him. And if they battle, that might give Phil Keane the opportunity to close up as well. So we've got these fights for position emerging. Ramos and Cristani, of those that have pitted, are the foremost in the field. The expectation being that once the pit stops have worked through, that Sally Yuluk will be in the lead of the race, having taken over from Ewan Hankey. The 15 success seconds for Gustavo Jacquemin and Fernando Montier mean that Montier may well come out behind this scrap between Cristani and Ramos. And one of the real characteristics of Miguel Ramos as a driver, particularly in the last couple of years, is that he is absolutely unflappable as the race leader comes in. Ewan Hankey has done an absolutely imperious job at the wheel of the TF Sport Aston Martin. He launches clear. Sally Yuluk hops into the cockpit. The rest of the team get to work servicing the car as Cristani looks to draw alongside Miguel Ramos and challenges and goes through. And that's potentially a very important move in the 2016 championship campaign. Cristani gets the jump on Ramos. It means that he's poised to take points off him. Meanwhile, Fernando Montier takes over from Gustavo Jacquemin. The Colombian gets to work strapping the Spaniard in. The rest of the team put on a fresh pair of boots. And now that Cristani is clear of Miguel Ramos, has the Portuguese driver got any response to the Lamborghini? Because the expectation would be that Sally looks going to emerge in the lead of the race, and then Cristani might fancy his chances about chasing down Sally Yuluk here, claiming a second victory of the season, and one that really does bring the Lamborghini squad that little bit closer towards the international GTOpen crown. Meanwhile, Miguel Sardinia takes over from Manuel da Costa to complete the pit stops in the sporting new Mercedes. So here is Sally Yuluk, and Yuluk has come out of the pits. The car you can see in the background is Kiko Galbiati, but Galbiati, to all intents and purposes, is a lap down. Yuluk's lead we will find out at the end of this lap, but 30 minutes remaining. Here comes Fabrizio Cristani now, just dancing on the brakes in the Lamborghini Huracan with Miguel Ramos. And then Emanuele Busnelli has emerged well poised. Here comes Phil Keane. And looking down the order, it's Fernando Montier, then Marco Ciocci and Com Ledegaard, or Com Ledegaard first of all. So Ledegaard is going to have to still pick his way past quite a few cars. But the key gap we're going to find out at the end of this lap is the differential between Sally Yuluk and Fabrizio Cristani, and whether or not that might be chaseable for Cristani. Meanwhile, moment for Kiko Galbiati, and that would possibly explain why he has dropped a lap down. Big spin in the Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghini. So this is the fight for second place between Cristani and Ramos. Here is Sally Yuluk, and Yuluk's lead is going to be a fairly handy one as he swings through the parabolica, and that's going to be good news for Sally Yuluk because it just means he can run at a pace that he's very comfortable with. Turkish driver has been getting better and better with each and every race. Flashes through onto the 23rd lap of the race. He leads here in Monza from Fabrizio Cristani and Miguel Ramos. So Yuluk leads the way. He is 20 seconds clear of Fabrizio Cristani. Miguel Ramos is third. Emanuele Busnelli fourth. Phil Keane is fifth. Fernando Montier sixth. In seventh place, it's Com Ledegaard. Eighth place is going to be Simone Pellegrinelli. And then to ninth, it's going to be Marco Ciocci or Miguel Sardinia. So Comledagar still 35 seconds or so to chase down in the McLaren. Meanwhile, a slight replay of a sideways moment for Miguel Ramos. And Ramos has lost a fair amount of ground, in fact, over the course of this lap. Just wonder if that sideways moment was indicative of something a little bit more untoward with the car. It means that Phil Keane has got a chance to possibly take some more points out of Miguel Ramos this afternoon. First of all, he's got to find a way past Emanuele Busnelli, making up to terms with the Portuguese driver just to bring up speed with the GTOpen class. That is Miguel Sardinia from Kiko Galbiati and then Lorenzo Bontempelli. Now the Sally Yuluk versus Fabrizio Cristani battle. Looks as if Cristani is going to be about a second quicker than Yuluk over the course of this lap. As Phil Keane tries to line up the move on the Ebi Motors Lamborghini of Emanuele Busnelli. I think Busnelli doesn't want to fight this too hard. He sticks to the racing line into the Parabolica. Phil Keane sees some space to the inside. So Phil Keane up into fourth place, off into pursuit of Miguel Ramos. So 25 minutes and change remain here in Monza. It is Sally Yuluk who leads the way, 18.5 seconds clear of Fabrizio Cristani, the championship leader. Third place is Miguel Ramos. Fourth is Phil Keane. Fifth, Emanuele Busnelli. Sixth, Fernando Monje. Seventh, Comledagar. Eighth, Simone Pellegrinelli. Ninth place, Miguel Sardinia. And 10th is Marco Ciocci. And there is Simone Pellegrinelli in the Imperiale Lamborghini Huracan. And Pellegrinelli, 6.5 seconds back from Comledagar as Thomas Jaeger scythes his way past Miguel Sardinia. So that's up into 10th place for the Lechner Racing Mercedes of Thomas Jaeger. Meanwhile, Comledagar in pursuit of Fernando Monje. This is for 6th place. Comledagar 33 seconds adrift of Sally Yuluk. It's possibly going to be a little bit too much to chase down in the next 25 minutes. But nonetheless, Ledegar and West trying to chase the podium, if that could be on. At the front of the field, meanwhile, I have to say that Fabrizio Cristani, at the current rate of capture, with the time remaining, is going to make this very interesting as to whether or not Sally Yuluk and the TF Sport Aston Martin is going to be able to claim the victory, because Yuluk has just done a 1 minute 50.8. Fabrizio Cristani was 18.5 seconds adrift at the start of the lap. Comes past now, does a 1 minute 48.9. 2 seconds quicker, essentially, than Sally Yuluk, and it's just 16.6 seconds now between Yuluk and Cristani. Miguel Ramos dropped back from Cristani in third, and into the clutches of Phil Keane, as Glickenhaus of Lorenzo Bontempelli about to go a lap down to Fernando Monje. Monje's got to be careful here. He doesn't want to lose time with the Lappery. At the same time, doesn't want to risk the car on duty. As it is, that worked out perfectly in that Ledegar couldn't find a way past Bontempelli before the Rettifilio. Monje could, and so it buys the Spaniard a little bit of breathing room over the Frenchman in the McLaren. The next target is Emanuele Busnelli. That should be a reasonably easy move for both Monje and Ledegar. That will also be a pass for position, so up into 5th place potentially. But we've got plenty of battles that are tantalisingly coming together through the field. First of all, Sally Yuluk, the race leader, is being caught by Fabrizio Cristani at a reasonable rate, and certainly one that can make it interesting. Flag. Likewise, Miguel Ramos in third is being reeled in very rapidly by Phil Keane. And Keane and Ramos have both just got to keep tabs on what's going on behind, because the quickest of all of this group of cars is Comledagar. There he is in the Garage 59 McLaren, just behind Monje in the BMW. So there you see the fight for the final podium position spread out down the back straight, and any one of those cars could well prevail in it. A little bit of a gap back further to Simone Pellegrinelli. And Busnelli also running at a pace where he is beginning to catch this group of cars. Sean Balfe and the Balfe Motorsport team watching from the pit wall. And whilst they're potentially going to be giving away some points here to the championship leaders Biaggi and Crostani, there is a chance to consolidate second in the championship, or indeed lose it, depending on what Phil King can do. So now they're on to terms with Busnelli. So both Monnier and Ledegaard looking to try and overhaul the Ebbie Motors Lamborghini with in fairly short order. This could also open the door to Ledegaard to challenge Monnier. Monnier knows it. He flashes the headlights at Emanuele Busnelli. But Busnelli is racing for position. Parks the car in the middle of the road. He is absolutely determined to keep the place if he can. Now this opens the door to Ledegaard, who's going to be able to challenge Monnier on the way into the first Lesmo. Ledegaard looks to the inside line. Oh, he makes 2 places in 1 move. Brilliant stuff from Com Ledegaard, as Emanuele Busnelli, I think, decided that wasn't his fight anymore and left racing room. But Com Ledegaard, the big winner, he just read that absolutely perfectly, could see how it was going to unfold in front of him. And now Ledegaard is released to try and chase down Phil Keen and Miguel Ramos. It's a 5-second or thereabouts gap that he needs to hunt down. But the pace that Ledegaard's been able to display, that could just about be on, particularly as we've got 20 minutes to play with. The gap between Yuluk and Crostani, be able to inform how that has shifted momentarily. We wait for Crostani to come past the commentary box, and he is another second quicker than Sally Yuluk. So Yuluk's advantage over Fabrizio Crostani is down to just 14 seconds. Here's a replay of that move from Com Ledegaard. Just executed the undercut absolutely perfectly. It's the applause of the Garage 59 McLaren team. So here is Fabrizio Crostani, championship leader, and came into today's race with a 19-point championship lead. So potentially going to grow that a little bit this afternoon, finishing clear of his main championship rivals en route to second, or could it even be first? Lost a little bit of time putting the lap on Kiko Galbiati through the first sector here. Then is Sally Yuluk. Now Yuluk will, I'm sure, be fully in the loop from the TF Sport team about the rate of capture from Fabrizio Crostani, and therefore the amount of time that he can afford to concede. You know, a mid 1 minute 50-second lap, which is what Yuluk is doing consistently, is hardly slumming it. Sally Yuluk and Ewan Hankey chasing their second win of the year. Sally, relatively speaking, quite an experience compared to many of the drivers in the field, but has been getting quick each and every event this season. Phil King gets ever closer to Miguel Ramos. Then you see in the background headlights ablaze. Com Ledegaard chasing that. Wasn't such a good lap from Yuluk. A 1 minute 51.5 from Sally Yuluk. Lost a lot of time through the middle sector. Possibly made a little bit of a mistake in the Aston Martin. Fabrizio Crostani, a 1 minute 49.1. The gap from first to second down to 12 seconds. We're getting excited about that now, because with 19 minutes remaining, that is potentially game on for Fabrizio Crostani. Phil Keen, 1.2 seconds back from Miguel Ramos. Now, I'm sure, plotting his move to find a way past. Com Ledegaard, though, a second quicker than Ramos last time around. So he is also eating in to this scrap for third position. Monnier reasonably secure in sixth for the time being, although Marco Ciocci, needless to say, is in full flight in ninth place. And alongside Crostani and Ledegaard, one of the quickest cars on the track at the moment. The challenge here for Phil King is, where can he overhaul the BMW and the McLaren, because the McLaren is a car that just performs so evenly over the course of the lap. He needs to just punch a little bit closer to Miguel Ramos and then see where he can get the jump on the BMW. But Ramos, having lost out to Crostani, I'm sure will be very keen not to do the same again. And now almost 8 seconds adrift of the second place car of Fabrizio Crostani as they navigate Ascari. The front of the field can tell you this has been a much better lap for Sally Uluk relative to that of Fabrizio, or relative to that certainly of the previous tour of the circuit, and also relative to that of Fabrizio Crostani. So Uluk a 1 minute 50.0, more like it. For the TF Sport Aston Martin, Crostani, we wait. He's about to come through as the fight for third rounds Parabolica. It was a 1 minute 48.9 for Crostani. So he turns up the wick further still. The gap from first to second to 10.9 seconds. Ramos and Keane, that gap comes down to under a second. But Com Ledegaard has just set the fastest lap of the race in fifth, a 1 minute 48.4. So he is ever closer to this group. There you see Com Ledegaard. Also flying, Fernando Monnier staying with Ledegaard. Sean Balfe, I'm sure, doing all the maths of what's going on here as well. I think he knows that for third place, Phil Keane, if he can, he's got to find a way past Miguel Ramos fairly shortly now. The lapper of Kiko Galbiati might represent the opportunity to do that. Galbiati in the Antonelli Racing Lamborghini just clear as Ramos a little bit slow coming out of the chicane. This a chance maybe for Phil Keane to look to challenge into the first Lesmo. He's right up with the BMW. Into the second Lesmo. Can he force Ramos offline? Not really. Miguel Ramos recovers very well from that slightly slow exit from the second chicane. We're back to where we were. Ramos always very effective defensive driver because he's never flustered. He just sticks to doing the job at hand. If he has to then make a defensive manoeuvre, gets back to the main racing line as quickly as possible. But now Phil Keane has maybe got the BMW in his sights. You can barely see the McLaren. He's tucked underneath the profile of the BMW down the back straight. Phil Keane thinks about the move into the Parabolica. Miguel Ramos also knew that Phil Keane was thinking about that move into the Parabolica. Thought better of it. Closed the door. So Keane gets back to the racing line, but the torque of the BMW allows Ramos to maintain the buffer as they come through, complete the 29th lap of the race. The front of the field, again, Crostani a second quicker than Sally Uluk. The gap between them down to under 10 seconds. Could well be in for a spectacular finale here in Monza. Com Ledegaard, again, 1.5 seconds quicker than Phil Keane and Miguel Ramos on that last lap. Keane's got the hurry up. He knows he needs to make this move on Ramos, probably in the next 2 laps. Otherwise, Ledegaard's going to be with them. Blue flag being waved at Miguel Ramos, let him know that Phil Keane is just behind him, which I think was information he was probably more than aware of. Still trying to close up as well onto Kiko Galbiati. Through the first Lesmo. There is Ledegaard in the back of your picture. Com Ledegaard in the Soul Garage 59 McLaren this weekend. If you have just joined us, unfortunately the other car was involved in a testing accident here last week, but we'll look forward to seeing Mike Benham and Duncan Tappy back in the Championship Barcelona at the start of November. Through Ascari. And now Ramos has caught Kiko Galbiati. This is where it could start to get interesting. Take a look, super slow motion of Sally Uluk at work. You look at that last lap, a very good one, I have to say, from the Aston Martin. A 1 minute 49.7, but still, Crostani finds more. Goes quicker still, a 1 minute 48.7, another second gained. Now down the start and finish straight, this fight for third. They've caught the Antonelli Lamborghini. And Ramos has got to try and find a way to navigate Kiko Galbiati. Opens the door to an opportunity to Phil Keane. Ramos sees a hole to the inside line. Phil Keane sees the same hole. That's very good driving from Galbiati. Didn't intrude on the lead or the front runners fight. And it certainly hasn't opened up the opportunity to Phil Keane. He has got Com Ledegaard ever larger in his mirrors. Now this could be an opening through the Curva Grande. The McLaren just a little bit tighter. He closes up onto Miguel Ramos. Ramos just moves to the middle of the road as they approach the chicane, making sure there's no hole to the inside line for Phil Keane. He gets the exit squared off perfectly. Means that Keane hasn't got an opening into the first Lesmo, but it means that Com Ledegaard gets ever closer. Come out of the first Lesmo, into the second, out at the far side of the circuit, headlights being flashed from Ledegaard to say, I'm here, I've come to join in. On towards Ascari, this for the 31st time in the race. Got 12.25 minutes left on the clock. Fight for third position. It's also a critical fight between Ramos and Keane, with an eye towards the championship. Sean Bow for second in the championship, just 4 points clear of Miguel Ramos. That could reverse itself very, very easily, which is why Phil Keane, if he can, find a way past the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW for Com Ledegaard and Alex West, a chance to get onto the podium once more. Fabrizio Crostani at the front of the field, meanwhile, now just 7.3 seconds back from Sally Yuluk. That rate of capture, Crostani is going to be with Yuluk with probably just a lap or so to play with, so that's going to be very interesting. As Ramos breaks deep into the Rettifilio, but he hits the apex, nothing that Phil Keane can do. Ledegaard is there, watching, waiting. Head into the Curva Grande. The two McLarens in pursuit of the BMW. They've got 3.3 second buffer over Fernando Montier, but if Ramos is able to bottle them up, then Montier will be with them in no time at all. Into the first Lesmo again, and Phil Keane, he just can't force the mistake from Miguel Ramos. And he also hasn't yet been able to just craft the opening that he needs to try and have a slam dunk manoeuvre. I expect that Ledegaard, if he can see a way past Phil Keane, will take it as quickly as he possibly can. Towards Ascari once more. Headlights being flashed from Ledegaard. Headlights fully ablaze from Phil Keane. The same for Miguel Ramos. But Ramos just navigates Ascari, focuses on the corner exit, makes sure there's no loss of momentum on the long run, down behind the pits and paddock area towards the Parabolica. Phil Keane again hidden behind the rear spoiler of the BMW. 10 minutes to race here in Monza, probably time for 6 more laps. At the front of the field, Fabrizio Crostani 2 seconds quicker than Sally Yuluk last time round in the battle for the lead of the race. That gap is now down to 5.4 seconds. The fight for third is down to about 0.6 of a second, covers the fight for third. It's all coming alive in the latter stages here in Monza, and now Phil Keane has to try and force the move. He looks to the inside of Miguel Ramos. Com Ledegaard looks to the outside. Oh, they all go a bit sideways. A huge lock-up on the brakes from Phil Keane through the escape route for Com Ledegaard. And where does Ledegaard reinsert himself into the battle? He sensibly rejoins at the tail of the train. Unbelievably late on the brakes from Phil Keane. You could see the black brake dust pouring forth from the McLaren. He knows he needs to make this move again. Ramos has got the car perfectly positioned. There's nothing that Keane can do. Into the second chicane, whereas we were. What about the exit? Can Keane craft the undercut? No, he can't. Not this time around. Into the first Lesmo. Again, Ramos covers the racing line. Com Ledegaard looking every which way to try and challenge Phil Keane. Out of the second Lesmo. Again, the McLarens wind up looking for another run at the BMW. But Ramos, despite this defence, his pace has not dropped significantly. He's lapping in the low 1 minute 50 second bracket. This is a very high speed duel. Through Ascari, out of Ascari, on towards the Parabolica. It's another look at it. Oh, a little bit of a tap, in fact, from Phil Keane to the tail of Miguel Ramos. Just the tiniest hint of contact. All tension for Alex West. Watching the progress of Com Ledegaard at the front of the field. Fabrizio Crostani now is 4.6 seconds back from Sally Yuluk. The clock is ticking down. Crostani might be running out of time. because that last lap he only gained 7/10 of a second, as now Phil Keen's got another good run on Miguel Ramos, and this time Keen draws to the inside of Ramos much earlier. Ramos tries to squeeze him, they squeeze each other, and Phil Keen, does he go through? He had the nose in front as they turned into the Rettifilio. He comes out in third place, but he has to concede the positions, and he loses out to Com Ledegar as well. He just brakes as late as he dared. Here's another look at it, and Ramos left no more than the McLaren's width, so they came in a little bit of attack from Keen, but Keen braked too deep, and to avoid any hint of a penalty he knew he had to back out of it, but it has cost him the place to Com Ledegar. Sean Balfe about the only person staying calm on the Balfe Motorsport pit wall. Brilliant battling again into the latter stages here in Monza. We've got just under 7 minutes remaining. This fight for third is well and truly alive. The fight for the lead is about to come alive, because Crostani's taken a second out of Sally Uluk just through the middle sector on this last lap. And now Ledegar looks for the move on Miguel Ramos, and Ledegar should go through into Ascari here, or does he all? Ramos shuts the door and goes into the gravel. So does Com Ledegar, and this is advantage Phil Keen. Ledegar recovers just into third position, but Ramos loses out, and he might lose more, because Fernando Monnier, his teammate in the second of the Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs, is now with them. But it's Ledegar who has snatched third, Phil Keen into fourth, and Ramos doggedly into defensive mode once more in fifth. Monnier is looking to try and overhaul the BMW. It was a bold move from Ledegar, and you could see that Ramos was so tempted to shut the door. The front of the field, Crostani is now just 3 seconds back from Sally Uluk, but look at this. Fernando Monnier's got a run here on Miguel Ramos. Ramos to the inside line, Monnier to the outside. But again, the BMW's whole position. Ledegar trying to break clear of Phil Keen. And that battle was always going to come to a head. It was Ledegar the battle at the front of the field. Well, Crostani is only half a second quicker than Uluk this time through the middle sector. So as Ledegar and Keen now break clear of Miguel Ramos, Fernando Monnier has got the opportunity to draw alongside Ramos as they head towards Ascari. And this, again, an important battle with an eye towards the championship, because these two cars came into today's race tied in points, and around the outside swoops Fernando Monnier, gains the place up into fifth position. Ramos slips into sixth, and just 4.5 minutes remain. Sally Uluk does a 1 minute 50.1. Here is the battle for the lead, 2.3 seconds between the pair of them, and you can see that timing split, just how the gaps have come down. It was 0.8 of a second last time through, but has Crostani got enough underneath him? Are the tyres going to last? And can he first of all catch Uluk and then find a way past him? Probably got time for this lap plus 2 more by my maths. Through the first sector there's nothing between them, Sally Uluk and Fabrizio Crostani. It's the middle sector where Crostani has consistently been eating away at Sally Uluk's advantage. The boot slightly on the other foot for Sally Uluk. If you cast your mind back to Paul Ricard in June, it was Uluk who was chasing Mike Benham in the latter stages, eventually until the pressure paid for Benham. Now Crostani, the championship leader in his home race at Monza. The points for second place will be very, very helpful for the championship, because they're ahead of all their rivals, but the chance of a home victory is not to be sniffed at. Meanwhile, Marco Ciocci has caught Simone Pellegrinelli in the battle for 7th and 8th place. Pellegrinelli and the Imperiali Racing Lamborghini team, though, making a very good debut in the International GTOpen. Can Pellegrinelli hold off Ciocci between now and the flag? It's going to be a fairly big ask. Thereafter, Ciocci's next target would be Miguel Ramos. That's further 10 seconds up the road. Here come the two leaders, meanwhile. Uluk and Crostani. It's down to 1.2 seconds as we start what's the penultimate lap of the race. So there's just 2 tours of this Monza circuit for Fabrizio Crostani. 1.2 seconds adrift to Sally Ulick at the start of the lap. The real challenge that he's going to have is if he can get into that turbulent air behind the Aston Martin. We've seen a couple of times this year, the Aston Martin is a difficult car to follow. It just seems to create more of a turbulent wake than some of its rivals. So that could make the task slightly trickier for Fabrizio Crostani. It really depends, I think, on the middle sector for this lap. If Crostani can put the hammer down on Sally Ulick, then it is very much game on there. You see the impact it's all going to have on the championship standings as things stand. So Crostani and Biaggi further extending their buffer. Sean Balfe likewise taking a little bit more out of Fernando Monnier and Gustavo Jackermann. On towards Ascari for the penultimate time of asking. Let's see what the gap is saying. It's saying it's down to 0.8 of a second, so it's 0.3 gained for Crostani in his pursuit of Sally Ulick. So they swing out of Ascari. If Ulick can hold on here, that will be a remarkable performance. Meanwhile, Marco Ciocci looks to the inside of Simone Pellegrinelli into the Rettifilio, and through he goes up into 7th place for Marco Ciocci. The two leaders head into the Parabolica for the penultimate time of asking. It's Aston Martin versus Lamborghini. So we have a look once more at that Ciocci move on Pellegrinelli. Beautifully executed into the last lap now. Crostani, 0.6 of a second adrift of Sally Ulick. That's a fair amount of ground to make up and then make a move. This is going to be a big ask for Fabrizio Crostani. But at the same time, for Sally Ulick, this is pressure as intense as it gets. The TF Sport team know it, as now we head into the section of circuit which best suits the Lamborghini Huracan. Through the Curva Grande, Crostani can see his quarry in front of him, but he also knows that the clock is going to tick to 0 before he comes round to the line. This checkered flag will go out this time around. What can Crostani do? Where, if at all, is the opportunity? Uses the opportunity of the first Lesmo to close the gap down to Sally Ulick. The tail of the Aston Martin just starts to kick. Ulick is pushing. He has to. He's elevating his pace as high as he dares, but he navigates the second Lesmo without any drama on towards Ascari. And Crostani is not going to be close enough to challenge Sally Ulick into Ascari. So it's all going to come down to the Parabolica. Up the rise in the road, on the brakes, into Ascari. Ulick turns through. No dramas there. Likewise, midsection. What about the exit? The Lamborghini is closing. So they head down towards the Parabolica for the final time. Crostani's going to be close enough here to have one shot at the lead. Does he go to the inside or the outside? He bobs and weaves. He tries to sell the dummy. He's not close enough to challenge, or he outbrakes himself. And Sally Ulick has done the job. He defends well enough from Fabrizio Crostani, and Sally Ulick and Ewan Hankey are going to take victory in Monza, their second win of the season. Crostani and Biaggi take second place after a battle royale on the final lap, and third position will go the way of Com Ledegaard and Alex West as Ledegaard heads through the Parabolica for the final time to take the checkered flag. So it's Ledegaard and West to third, fourth position for Phil Keane and Sean Balfe, fifth to Fernando Monnier and Gustavo Jackermann, and sixth Miguel Ramos. Just a handshake there for Ewan Hankey. Thomas Biaggi, he can afford to be all smiles. The same for Biaggi. That was a wonderful final lap. As Crostani closed, he tried everything, but Ulick defended perfectly. A-OK for Ewan Hankey. And well, the victory in Silverstone was a little bit more straightforward for Sally Ulick, but that was brilliantly driven on the last lap. He absorbed all the pressure. He knew the Lamborghini was coming, and he just didn't let it slip. So he flashes his headlights in thanks to all the marshals. The GTAM class, here is the class leader. It is Miguel Sardinia, and Sardinia Manuel da Costa on course for another GTAM victory as Sardinia accelerates out of Ascari on towards the Parabolica. Second place in the GTAM class is on course for Kiko and Omar Galbiati, with Lorenzo Bontempelli and Mino Caccia en route to third position, but Miguel Sardinia and Manuel da Costa in the Sport and New Mercedes claim victory in the GTOpen class in race 1 at Monza. They take the checkered flag and celebrate accordingly. So let's have a look then at the classification. Victory for Yuluk and Hankey, second place. An extended championship lead for Biaggi and Cristani. West and Ledegar in third, with Com Ledegar getting the fastest lap. Sean Balfe and Phil Keane in fourth from Gustavo Jacob and Fernando Montier. Then Miguel Ramos and Peter Schothorst. Alex Moiseev and Marco Ciocci in seventh, head of the Imperiale Racing. Lamborghini, Vito Postiglione and Simone Pellegrinelli in eighth. Mario Plasciuta and Thomas Jäger in ninth from the Ebby Motors. Lamborghini of Busnelli and Babini to complete the top 10. The GTOpen classification then, Miguel Sardinia and Manuel da Costa ahead of the Galbiatis, and then Lorenzo Bontempelli and Mino Caccia in the Glickenhaus, completing the GTOpen podium. So in terms of the championship then, Cristani and Biaggi now 27 points clear of Sean Balfe. Monnier and Jackerman in third, easing away from Miguel Ramos. Sally Yuluk and Ewan Hankey 41 points off the championship lead. It's a big ask, but it's not totally insurmountable for them with 3 races to run. But for Cristani and Biaggi, that second place today has taken them a big step towards the 2016 International GTOpen crown. In terms of the celebrations in Parc Ferme, that is all for Sally Yuluk and Ewan Hankey. Two absolutely delighted drivers congratulating each other in Parc Ferme. The same for Fabrizio Cristani. He goes to celebrate with the Orange One Team Lazarus squad, as Hankey and Yuluk pose for the cameras, all smiles. That was a maximum stress race for them, but one that they can look back on. Huge level of satisfaction. Alex West and Com Ledegar onto the podium in the Garage 59 McLaren. And that was a very nicely judged race for the pair of them. So 6 very happy drivers in Parc Ferme.
Sally Yuluk and Ewan Hankey, what a race and what a win. Maybe we start with Ewan because Sally needs to recover.
Yeah, no, start was good, the initial getaway, but then I didn't go down to first gear into turn 1, so I struggled to stop, and then I got given a bit of a hit up the rear, which helped me go, and then from then on it was just try to get as big a gap as possible to hand over to Sal, and then just hope for the best at the end. Luckily, he drove really well, didn't make any mistakes when Cristani was right behind him, and yeah, it was brilliant.
And Sal, it was resisting race, but you did it wonderfully.
Yeah, well, at some point towards the middle of my stint, actually, I wasn't at the pace that I was hoping for, so I was not happy with myself in the car, and I probably needed the Lamborghini behind me to be able to pick myself up. And I'm happy that we managed to get the win at the end. So thankfully, this guy had given me a good gap to manage, so it's all good.
Wonderful win, and now podium. Well done, guys.
So 2 very happy drivers there in Parc Ferme, and 2 more in the form of Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Cristani. Very important result in the championship for them. Let's take a look back then at the highlights of the race, and off the line it was Ewan Hankey who got the jump but then ran a little bit wide through turn 1, as he was saying in his interview. They all made it through the Rettifilio for the first time. Then there was some brilliant dicing for second position. Peter Schothorst, Miguel Ramos and Vito Postiglione. Schothorst, Gustavo Jacobman and Vito Postiglione going wheel to wheel, lap after lap. Battle that eventually was decided in Postiglione's favour as he was able to wiggle the Lamborghini past Peter Schothorst. Imperiale Racing Lamborghini making solid debut in the championship. Mid-race pit stops and Ewan Hankey came in, giving Sally Uluk a handy buffer, but then post pit stops he was being chased all the while. Gustavo Jacobman was able to move up to third on the road ahead of Peter Schothorst. Meanwhile, Fabrizio Crestani, shortly after taking over the Lamborghini, was able to ease past Miguel Ramos. Com Ledegaard had to do it a little bit more aggressively, with Phil Keane following through. That the decisive move for third position. Last lap and Crestani was on Uluk's tail, but Sally Uluk prevailed. He and Ewan Hankey took their second victory of the season. Crestani and Biaggi took another big step towards the championship, with Com Ledegaard and Alex West completing the podium after a charging drive, with Miguel Sardinia and Manuel da Costa scoring GT honours. So applause onto the podium. So, third place for Com Ledegaard and Alex West. Smile for West, a great drive from Ledegaard, and West's second podium in succession. Crestani and Biaggi, their second runners-up finish in succession. And Sally Uluk and Ewan Hankey onto the top step of the Monza podium, with TF Sport being the winning team. The British National Anthem in honour of TF Sport. Winners of the 11th race of the International GTOpen season here in Monza. As we move on to the presentation of the trophies, Alex West and Com Ledegaard in third. Runners-up, Fabrizio Crestani and Thomas Biaggi. Of course, they've got to do it all over again tomorrow, because we've got the second race of the weekend to look forward to. That starts at 2:10 local time here in Italy, so do make sure that you join us for that, because if it's anything like today, then we will be in for a real treat. Ivan Capelli presenting the winners' trophies to Ewan Hankey and Sally Uluk. So very happy drivers on the rostrum, as we also get the winning team trophy for TF Sport. So as the drivers pose the photos, they're about to make merry with the champagne. It's time to say thank you very much for joining us here in Monza this afternoon. We are only halfway through the weekend, so do make sure you join us tomorrow. But until then, it's goodbye from Italy. We now turn our attention to the GTOpen podium, and third place on their return to the International GTOpen for Lorenzo Bontempelli and Mino Caccia in the Glickenhaus. Omar and Kiko Galbiati runners up, and our GTOpen winners Miguel Sardinia and Manuel da Costa. The Sports a New Mercedes. Serving the Galbiatis very well, and they are delighted with second place, as are the team. Manuel da Costa and Miguel Sardinia receive the winners' trophies and celebrate on the top step of the Monza podium. Again, another excellent race in the GTOpen class. And now they make merry with the champagne. So we will be back at 2:10 tomorrow local time. But until then, from Monza, it's goodbye.